And greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to another edition of Oh Man, That's Awful, here on Radio Titans, coming to you from our beautiful studios here in Los Angeles. And I'm Carl Kozlowski, one of your hosts, and with me is...
Kevin Corcoran.
And today we have two fantastic guests. We have with us from Los Angeles Magazine, their associate editor and man about town, one of the most coolest cats that you'll ever meet anywhere in the universe. I call him LA's Wizard of Oz. He's also the former chairman emeritus of the LA Conservancy's Modern Committee, and along with him is his good friend and fellow chairman emeritus of the LA Conservatory, the Modern Committee, or overall LA Conservancy?
Modern Committee.
Modern Committee, ADRIENE Biondo, and they're each authors of books about LA and Southern California. Chris has a book coming out from Toshin in April on Disneyland, while Adrian is the author of several illustrious books, including the Southern California Eats, Volumes 1 and 2, which you can find available everywhere that fine books are sold. And so today we're going to be talking about things that are awful in LA history, conservancy kind of stuff. Things, like epic fails of deciding what to preserve and how things went awry in that movement. And also, whenever we think that something's particularly awful, any of us is authorized to hit this bell, and we will give $1 to a charity for every time that bell is rung over the course of the show. And so far, we've pledged $15.50 to Hurricane Harvey relief, and $15 to what was last week's one?
It's the LGBT Youth Center.
Oh, that's right.
Hollywood.
Yes. And so today we'll be giving the money to the Hollywood Heritage Organization.
Are we heroes? Yes.
Yes, definitely.
There's no follow-up to that.
You can do a lot with $15, right? I think. Maybe $15.50. And you might hear on occasion chiming in from our illustrious sound man, Dr. David Robinson, who's allowed to swing over his mic if he would like and chime in from time to time. He's got LA's funniest laugh, so we love him on every one of our shows. So today, I guess we'll just dive in with the issue of conservancy preservation in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is notorious. Check out LA's Story by Steve Martin. We're notorious for being a city that doesn't preserve a damn thing hardly in our history. It's considered historic if it's 20 years old pretty much. So, but Chris and Adrian have higher standards than this, and they'll share with us the ins and outs of what's considered historic in LA and how do we preserve it. So I guess I'll start off with the issue of how did you guys manage to get into this kind of topic? Was there a particular building or something that got your attention?
Well, I was a high school student in the 1980s, and I was walking past this abandoned, boarded-up, wrecked McDonald's building that I had remembered from my youth. It was one of the original red and white striped buildings with the arches from the 50s, and it was still there, and it was overgrown and sad and decrepit, and I was fascinated by it as a ruin, and I thought, what is this weird thing? I'm so interested. And then my father gave me a book called Googie, 50s Coffee Shop Architecture by Alan Hess.
Gesundheit.
And I saw this book, and I saw it was in there, and I thought, wow, it must be really important if it's in a book. So I called the author. I called Alan Hess out of the phone book, and he said, you got to check out this LA Conservancy. They're starting a 50s group, and you would fit right in. And I was 17, and I joined, and that's how I learned about all this stuff.
Wow. So was there a particular, because before the show, you guys were saying, you should really tell that story. So was there something that... we'll get into that in a second. I should ask Adrian as well. How did you get into this kind of field?
Same story, but it was a Taco Bell.
Yeah. One with a real bell on it. These have those.
Those are rare.
Actually, in 1988, I opened up a little mid-century modern shop on Melrose called Astrolux. And lo and behold, John English, an old-time friend and Modern Committee guy, he wandered in, and then he said, my friend Chris Nichols, he has to see this shop, because I had really fun things. I had a Jack-in-the-Box head in the window, and I had all sorts of other cool predictas and things that are popular. And he brought Chris by, and we instantly became friends, and we just started hanging out, and I felt like, finally, I've met my people.
Nice. That's a good feeling.
She had some amazing stuff in that store, and I mean, that the mid-century stuff is almost played out right now. There's so much of it everywhere. But I mean, before Mad Men and before any of this happened, especially in preservation, it was a really hard sell. It was really hard to sell this 50s modern stuff to people, especially in the 80s.
It's
oh my
really
God.
true.
Yeah, they really looked down on it in our community. But I think the work that we did for so long was, instrumental in kind of making that change. And it's gratifying to see it, like, overplayed now and everywhere.
Do you find that stuff like that's kind of cyclical, like it comes and goes?
Well, no, I think it just takes a while to become respectable, and I think it took a really long time for this stuff to kind of come into play. I think, when we saw that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie fashion shoot in the Case Study House, like, oh, okay, I guess it's a thing now. And then just kind of, became everywhere. But, there were a lot of battles and a lot of losses along the way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then, but with the McDonald's, what was the story there? I mean,
well, it was just such a cool building, and I was totally fascinated by its oddity, and I remembered it had its oddity. It was such a strange thing, and
surely you know the word oddity.
No, I don't know. I thought it was like Toshin. Like I always said Tashin. It was like Carl. My book's coming out with Toshin. So I thought, oh, this is like some sort of like thing, like McDonald's, like that I wasn't aware of.
A short-lived burger.
Yeah, but what was odd about it?
I mean, it was a very dynamic and exciting building that was leaping forward towards you. It was
McDonald's.
It was a very attractive building. It just
you have a strange fetish, my friend.
I really fell in love with this place, and I love modern ruins, and I just was so fascinated by it. But I mean, it was playful and colorful and really tried to get your attention, and that was the whole point of that kind of architecture.
And I always remember how you told me that you were so heartened the day that you saw that looked like it's coming back. They're painting it, they're cleaning the windows, and you were so excited.
They took the board up off of it, they put the arches back on, They brought a sign in, and they were filming a commercial. So, it all came down again.
I was going to ask what happened to that.
It was very sad. It just lasted during the commercial, and I was there every night for the filming of it. But it...
That's true for so many landmarks, even the Mel's after American Graffiti.
The Mel's, where they filmed American Graffiti up in San Francisco, closed, abandoned, and then the movie came in and made it look beautiful, and everybody saw American Graffiti and fell in love with it, and then instantly it was demolished.
Right.
So gone. So I mean, it's kind of a horrible tease when they come back for a moment and then just disappear again. But the thing about the McDonald's is that it was, like the first time I was learning how to do this stuff, and I was learning how to deal with it. I went to my first city council meetings, and I sort of started to learn how the system works, and eventually we lost it, and it's now a parking lot for a school.
Pay paradise and put up a parking lot.
And it's not.
I have a standing order to do that when Carl sings.
And F you. I'm sorry. We'll ding that out. Okay.
And I mean,
no swearing, please, if you can help it.
It was next to this great drive-in theater, which we also tried to save. But as we get to the point where we're 50, 60 years after this stuff happened, the few remaining examples are so much more valuable and so important. And we've just, both of us really feel strongly about this stuff and try to keep a few examples. Because the other neat thing about dealing with 50s modern stuff was that we got to know the people that created it, and we became friends with them, and we really understood it from their point of view. And we have a friend named Jack Laxer who's a 3D photographer, and we saw this stuff brand new, in color and 3D, like we were walking into the buildings in his photography. And that was also really inspiring to see all this stuff and to know the people that created it.
I think it was particularly inspiring to bring Jack Laxer to meet the owner of Mel's, Stephen Weiss, and his family. And we met him because we're working together to bring back the penguins.
Lincoln and Olympic in Santa Monica, there was a great Googie coffee shop that spent the last 25 years entombed under a dental office. Oh. It had become a Dr. Beecham credit dentist, and it was an awful shape.
Dr. Beecham credit dentist?
Yeah.
It sounds like a bad CBS show from the 80s. Dr. Quinn, medicine woman, followed by Dr. Beecham, credit dentist.
Like John Larroquette was in that.
Now, in order to go to a Googie restaurant.
It was a sad, awful thing, and this guy that owns
so
Mel's,
was the show.
This guy that owns Mel's came and got it, and now we're working with them like constantly to try to find the parts to put it back together. It's like restoring a car.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make that happen and make it come back. And when these things come back from the brink, it's very satisfying for people that like us that love this stuff.
Was it satiating? Okay, wait a minute. That was an inside joke beforehand. Yeah, so
It's the smallest callback ever.
So that was awful. Okay, so
I was about to do it.
No.
Don't be
feel
shy.
free. Don't be shy. We want to be charitable. Let's see if we can break 15 this week. Okay, so
He hasn't gotten to the chorus of a Joni Mitchell song yet.
okay, don't push me. Okay, so okay, I've got a bunch of other legitimate questions, but I did mention the Taco Bells offhand. What happened to the bells in Taco Bell?
We did work to save a Taco Bell, actually. Taco Bell #1 in Downey, 1962.
Wow.
And it was sitting on a plot of land that the developer wanted to take over, and Adrienne got involved and tell him what happened to that.
Actually, that was pretty amazing. It ended up being preserved, and then they painted it to look like it did when it first opened in 1962 by Glenn Bell.
Nice.
It's not too far down the street from the Johnny's Broiler. That was Harvey's
We did
Broiler.
talk about Johnny's Broiler.
Around the corner from Speedy McDonald's, and then it got all dressed up, was loaded onto a truck, and then it was trucked all the way down Firestone Boulevard in front of crowds of people all the way into Orange County.
I was leaning on it, and it started to move, and it rolled away, and it rolled down to Irvine, where it is now. It's at their corporate headquarters in Irvine.
So it was just like the space shuttle or the levitating mass boulder.
Except with the Taco Bell. Yeah. And it got shipped down there, and they're planning to restore it and use it for something down in Orange County. So and also the McDonald's in Downey on Lakewood and Florence was identical to the one in Azusa where I grew up, and the McDonald's in Downey was another preservation issue where we this company was it was like an original store, totally intact and beautiful, this great artifact of the 50s, closed down after the '94 Northridge earthquake. We ended up having do some political theater out there on the street and some protesting. Anyway, McDonald's, we finally got their ear, and they came back in and restored it and did a beautiful job. We had cheeseburgers under glass, Carl. It was a wonderful evening.
Oh, wonderful!
Yes, and they did this great job, and it's still there. It's now a functioning hamburger stand. You can go down and live life like someone did in that time, and experience this great contribution from Southern California that changed the world. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we invented fast food here, and it was the McDonald brothers and the Snyders at In-N-Out, and Neil Baker at Baker's, and Glenn Bell at Taco Bell, and Carl Karcher, and all these folks that were all spying on each other here and trying to come up with the way to create mass feeding. Create
mass feeding. That's horrible. It sounds terrible. It sounds awful. What am I saying?
But
I almost forgot that was a legitimate. That's horrible. It wasn't even a cheap ploy for charity.
But we invented it here. It's an LA thing,
and it's nice to go to that location because it's the oldest operating McDonald's in the world, and it has a little museum with artifacts.
Nice. Can I ask you? Cool. Down the street from where I used to live in Koreatown, there was a Taco Bell, and there wasn't anything really special about it, but they tore it down and rebuilt like a newer Taco Bell in the exact same spot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, right. I've seen that.
Is that just because it was like too dirty and they were
Usually
just like cheaper than
you don't
cleaning
take
it?
the whole thing down, but the architects that we love that did these Googie coffee shops, Armand Davis, they said their goal was to demolish every building every 7 years and rebuild it.
Oh, wow.
That they thought it should come down and be rebuilt constantly. And actually, they're still in business after 70 years. They're still making restaurants. And the person that runs Victor Newlove, who runs the firm, said he went to prison to study toilets in prison so he could build a vandal-proof toilet in Taco Bell.
Wow.
So that's what it's come to.
I think vandalism's only half the problem, frankly.
As long as we're talking about McDonald's, and this is definitely out of the Southern California area, but I always was told that the first McDonald's not of the chain was in Des Plaines, Illinois.
Completely wrong. Fabrication.
Shut up, Dave.
Go see the founder. I'm so glad that movie came out and kind of explained that story and sort of. But the thing is that when I was a kid, all the McDonald's stores had a plaque that said, Ray Kroc, our glorious founder,
Right.
Des Plaines, Illinois, 1955.